I am by myself today. In all.
Yeah. All right. We are up and going on everything here. You mean yourself up and going now?
Welcome if you're just getting logged in. It's a cold, blustery morning here
Yeah, it's a little
in California,
more rainy than I was expecting today.
which is great. We need it.
Yeah.
Welcome to the 034 Motorsport live chat, episode 95.
Yeah, should be. I don't know. Facebook, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to be updating the title. So
Sure.
on YouTube, it's 95, and it's typed in as 95 on Facebook.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're just getting started here, letting people sign on. Give you the usual spiel. Ravad Shadzi, the CEO of 034 Motorsport, and this is Nate Stewart, head of engineering. And this is a question and answer session. You ask us things, we answer it. We take a no BS response to answering questions. We have no trouble tackling controversial topics. And we have a pretty good track record of not saying dumb things or that, well, I've said lots of dumb
We say
things.
lots of dumb, terrible things.
Things that aren't wrong.
Yeah, as far as
Factually speaking.
factually or
I feel my confidence, I used to always be a little scared of the thought of doing something like this, that I might say lots of things that were wrong. And after 95 episodes, there's been no major scandal
pretty good
yet.
track record so far. So yeah.
All right.
This is all off the cuff stuff, so we may not have as
we don't prepare.
flushed out information as we could possibly have, but
And-
we're trying to hit these questions as quick as we can straight off the cuff.
None of our questions are rehearsed or researched
Nope.
in any way, so we're just seeing these for the first time.
We do have some carryovers from last week, but I don't
Yeah.
have time to look at them during the week, so they're just as new to me today as they were a week ago.
Speaking of which, I will start jumping on some of the old questions. Yeah, let's keep those separate. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so someone said last week, Crackle pop tunes have made issues on my Mark IV 1AT. Sounds like this caused a problem with their turbocharger. But my Stage 1 B9 SQ5 came right off the bat with Crackle pop, and I don't see the way to turn it off. Does Crackle pop not damage the B9 3.0 T platform turbo? No. The way we implement pops and bangs, it does not damage the motor or the turbo in any way.
So there's a huge difference between the Mark IV era, crackle and pop tunes versus what the recent calibrations from the OEMs have with these strategies. There's a lot that can go into doing it both correctly and incorrectly.
Yeah.
If you're just pulling fuel or whatever, retarding a bunch of ignition and not monitoring anything else around it and just going ham on it all the time, like a lot of the Mark IV era stuff kind of was. You're going to have, potentially issues with turbos, catalysts, plug fouling, you name it.
Catalyst for sure.
Because none of that's really controlled. It's just a pretty crude, Hail Mary at it, pull a bunch of timing out, and just let it kind of throw fireballs down the exhaust. So, no, the new stuff is a much more refined. It's all modeled. It's all controlled.
It's actually, the functionality is built into
It's literally called sound tuning in the Bosch world. It's impulse control in the CMOS world. But it's OEMs, realized people wanted it. They built it into the factory files. It's got a whole, emissions friendly, catalyst friendly, everything friendly control system around it to make sure that it's gonna keep everything safe. And it's it's obviously just a cosmetic thing, and it's just an auto thing. It's not a performance related anything. But it's done in a way that's
all right, let's
audibly enhancing it.
busting through these old questions. Any further big turbo development for the Mark 7.5 R? We're working on it. We don't have an ETA, but it's in development right now. We have a car outfitted with right
now we've got the EQT,
EQT.
the normal sized one on there currently, and we'll be doing those, and I believe probably the Garrett stuff will be the next up after that.
Have you guys thought about doing fuel cut launch control to keep flex pipes intact?
I don't know why anything would not keep the flex pipes intact. It's probably to do more with
Flex pipes.
movement of the motor than anything. But the EGTs are so
3.0 Ts have very high EGTs, and this is what causes exhaust components like flex pipes to fail. It's not because of the way we're doing launch control.
Even if you're sitting on an ignition cut launch, it's for a few seconds, or should be for a few seconds at most. So
it would not be enough to destroy a stainless steel.
Being able to get the EGT temperatures up to a point where it would be a problem on exhaust component downstream like that.
This is exactly why B8s go through factory cali converters at a much higher rate than any other Audi, because the turbo shields those components downstream from a lot of that really direct heat. So you have the same type of specific output being created in the combustion chamber, but there's nothing between the cali converter, those flex pipes, and the exhaust valve. So all that heat comes straight out and right into the rest of the system. Turbos absorb a lot of heat and convert some of that heat into boost in energy. And so, it's a problem with EGTs and the configuration of the 3.0T V8 being a supercharged engine. It has nothing to do with I don't know like where people come, like people just make stuff up online and then it's now a fact that our launch somehow causes flex pipes to fail. That's totally false.
Yeah. And on all of our launch strategies, you can always not run if you run in non-dynamic mode, so the comfort mode, it is a factory strategy on launch. So it is a non-ignition cut. It's going to do it just like factory. So yeah, you already have that option.
Any plans on tuning the C7 4.0T platform? Yes, but nothing right now to offer. I've got a B9 SQ5 with 45,000 miles on it. Before I load up stage 1 93 octane, what maintenance would you suggest prior to tuning? On the B9, these are pretty new cars, and they don't quite have the same type of issues that the B8s have at being 5 to 10 years old.
45,000 still.
I would just recommend make sure you're caught up on all your maintenance, your factory maintenance. I don't know. You don't need to do anything, but you could change the oil, maybe put some fresh plugs in, but you don't need to. If you really want to do something, you could. And I would say virtually all of our B9 customers currently are just flashing on the car they drive and maintain as normal.
Yep.
There's nothing needed. The B8s, you've got a 10-year-old air-to-water intercooler. You've got 10-year-old factory cats that have seen hell. You have aging and more Achilles heel issues. The B9 3.0T so far, I don't think we've seen really any issues.
Not like an Achilles thing. I mean,
in 3-4 years,
there's of course all the refinement stuff you can put around it as far as inserts, mounts, that kind of thing to help with power, the added power. But not. I mean, that's why on our website as well we list required and recommended hardware, and there aren't any for the stage 1. If it's a well-maintained vehicle, you should be in good shape.
Let's jump to some of the newer questions. TTE 710 ETA. We're not announcing an ETA yet. It's very soon. This is currently our top level engineering project that the whole team is driving towards.
Very actively being worked.
Finishing, and hang in there. It's going to be very soon. I don't want to set any expectations, but very soon. Will you be doing B8 3.0T port injection tuning? I thought we addressed this last week.
We address this a lot. It comes up every week. There's no imminent plans to do it because we've said this before too, is when we find a need to do it, we will tackle something, but it's got to be done in a way that's properly controlled and calibrated. And right now there's nothing on the market that is that. And there's, I think there's a lot of expectations out there that adding more injectors means we're going to make a bunch more power on the B8. That is likely, or there's no reason to assume that. These things aren't just chronically fuel limited. They are fuel limited if you want to run like full E85 on a 2+ setup, but you run an E40 or you can run race fuel now. And I mean, it's not like there's 50 or 100 horsepower sitting on the table waiting for you. So it's not a very high priority on our list.
Does the hot V setup on the B9 create a larger impact on IATs than what you might get from a more traditional turbo setup? I'd say it's actually the opposite. You keep all that heat in the V where you can manage it, and then the heat on the outside of the engine is non-existent. So the intake manifolds don't heat up the same. There's really nothing when the car is moving, there's no heat source that can conduct heat into the intake manifolds.
Yeah, other than some radiator wash, but I mean that's gonna be there no matter.
That's so low, and
that
flow is pretty well
Yeah,
controlled.
all that heat is just coming up away from the manifolds compared to an intake manifold in the V.
The hot V setup's the way to go. I don't think there's any evidence that we would sit here and say we have data to show that one's better than the other, but the heat stays where it's supposed to be. The turbo heat, which is inside the V, and it can be insulated and managed there. And you don't have all this heat from the outside of the motor coming up and heating up the entire engine compartment nearly as badly. Yeah. Now, the area in the hot V stays hot for a long time. You shut that car off.
It's a thermal mass. That'll keep your house warm for a day or two.
You can open the hood 3 hours later and you can still barely touch the engine cover. But the good thing is that's where the heat's contained. The air box is staying cool. You can easily keep heat out of the turbo inlet area, and once you take all that stuff, the cover off, you can see how well insulated it is in there. And then the downpipes go straight out the back, down by the transmission. You don't have these two big heat sources on the outside of the motor. I really like it. It's a nice setup,
and just the packaging is so nice for turbo upgrades, maintenance. It's pretty true.
S4 B8 calibration features, future products still in your sights. Yes, absolutely. We're not done with the B8. I think we talk about this all the time. We're putting a lot of focus on B9. B8 doesn't need as much focus as it used to, but we are continuing to make improvements. We just released B8 TCU tune in December, and
for all the AL55 stuff for all your automatic guys.
And we are actively doing B8 development as well. So we're not done. That's still our most popular selling tune.
Yeah, no, we're still going to be working on that for some time.
You make a carbon fiber radiator cover for the B9.5 S4. Any chance of releasing one for the B9.5 S5? Probably not. We had all these covers in engineering, and I ended up saying I don't want to make there's the B9, the B9.5s each have their own cover, and then the A4, S4 have one, and then the S has another. The S5 has another. So my compromise was let's just release a couple of the most popular ones and see how they sell. And they're selling, but not very well. So I don't think we'll be doing any more of those. And then there's some really cheap stuff popping up on eBay. That's So we released the ones we did. I don't think we'll be doing more just because they're not really good sellers, and they're big pieces of carbon, so they're very expensive to make.
It's tough to ship too.
You guys working on stage 2 for B9.5 S5, also stage 2 TCU.
Stage 2 TCU is coming. Yeah, we have stage 2 ECU software already for the B9.5.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the TCU side that we're going to be doing more work on in the near future.
I'm just surprised they don't know that we have stage 2.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure where.
Go check out our website.
It's on the website.
We have RS5.
What's that?
The RS5.
That was B9.5 S5.
It said S5. Yeah.
If it's RS5,
RS5?
If it's on RS5, then that's coming.
Of course, yeah. We will release stage 2 soon.
Yep.
And then also the stage 2 TCU.
Yeah, ECU and TCU will be coming along as well.
How do I use the advanced launch control on the B9 S4, please? When I push the brake and press throttle, the car doesn't seem to hold. We have a whole video of this.
No, so we don't have advanced launch for the B9. That's the first and foremost.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Make sure you're paying attention to what our videos should say B8 or B9 specifically. Mm-hmm. But regardless, it does have launch control, and that. I think
I guess when I read it, that's what I was assuming that they didn't know.
Yeah, we do have videos on that. I believe Nick put some videos up on that. But you got to make sure traction control's off, full off. And that I've seen some guys where they'll just do stage 1 off and they're still pushing through the brakes. But full off should get you into launch control. A launch control mode, and then it's just hard on the brake, hard on the gas, and they will push against the brakes. These automatics will load up the torque converter. And it will push against the brakes. So you got to be hard on the brakes to hold it.
Yeah, but we do not have it. Said we want to be very clear. We haven't released that yet.
Advanced launch is a whole other thing. That's where we're going to give you more control over, basically RPM and torque that you're going to be able to leave the line with. So that's kind of a different strategy that we'll be introducing.
Do you think a ceramic coat or something similar is worth it for a daily driver? I'm assuming this is for paint. So a lot of people are doing these ceramic coatings. How much do they cost? They're like $2,000 or something like that.
I think sky's the limit. I've seen 10 on some.
I've seen 500 to 700.
I'm not too interested in this, and the reason is I just don't keep cars for very long. My basic car owning experience is that I own and drive cars as part of my job and career at 034 Motorsport. So I would love to have a Porsche. I would love to have many different types of cars. But if I go buy an Audi and I drive it, and then I can develop products for it, and I can drive it and test those products while I drive around and do all my driving, then it's just, for me, it's this free opportunity in life to make myself more successful by simply driving. And so for me, I at any time have 10, 15 Audis in my life. Some of them I own, some of them the company owns, and I just drive them all as a matter of doing my job as the CEO and head product guy at 034 Motorsport. It would cost me so much money to put ceramic coatings on all these cars, and then what do I get out of it at the end? So I don't really believe in spending the money on that. Now, I think if my advice to anyone is, if you have bought a car and you love that car and it's very important to you and you want to keep the paint clean and nice, and you feel like you'll keep that car for a long time, then ceramic coating or these 3M type film coatings on the front end and the leading surfaces of the car do help protect the paint. And so when you go to sell it, you will have less nicks and dings and scratches than otherwise. But they're not cheap. I mean, these I think to get your car wrapped in clear bra is $2,000 to $5,000.
It's cheap, and that's got to be. Yeah.
And a decent paint job
to do it right is also, you're going to find someone that's going to spend time to get everything curled around all the edges.
Has to be done.
Make sure everything's cleaned.
Yeah.
Obviously very well before it goes on. And then if you've got chips and stuff in there already, they're just going to be sealed up, and you'll have chips forever that you can't touch up.
I'm actually surprised how much people spend on that stuff. To me, it's paint. I believe in just washing the car and waxing it, and doing basic maintenance, and then just trying really hard to be safe with the car.
Yeah.
But I think if you have like a $300,000 car and a couple dings and scratches could easily take $50,000 off the value of the car, then sure, spend $3,000 on whatever you need to protect it. But to do that on a $10,000 or $15,000 car just seems silly to me. But I'm not a real. I wouldn't say I'm a detail.
Yeah, we're not
a
much,
detailer.
We're not so much the car show scene guys. We're the track.
It's not even necessarily a car show. Like Troy, our friend Troy, who used to work here. I mean, he loves detailing. He does. Yes. He buys all the products. He details. And that doesn't float the boat. So, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Tuned my car by local tuner in West Palm Beach, Florida. It's a 2021 B9 S4. Got an intercooler and drop-in filter. Car runs 12.2 at 113. Should I upgrade to 034 as it seems slow, just as fast as my Mark 7? I mean, one, I don't know who did your custom tuning. That is very slow. But we are a world-class engineering firm that is world-renowned for tuning Audis, and our off-the-shelf tuning is better than your custom tuning. The custom tuning you got. That's just we do a better job of creating a better file, more optimized calibration. We have the experience, and when we do it, thousands and thousands of people benefit from it. Now, you went and paid someone to do it once, and you're the only person that may or may not be happy with it. We have to make sure that 5, 10, 20,000 people will be happy with the product we create. So it's a much bigger, more established, much more intricate effort that we conduct than what any tuner could afford to do to sell one tune. If based on the calibration work that Nate and his team did, we sold one tune, we would lose hundreds of thousands of
It's not going to be a
right? And so this is kind of like saying, I heard custom built cars are nicer than production cars, which are kind of boring and blah. So instead of buying a 911 GT3 RS, I went and had, Joe's Auto Body build me a car, like, well, what does Joe know about building cars? And he's building one car for one person and hasn't gone through testing.
Yeah.
How many engineers worked on this? What kind of experience do they have? What kind of tools and equipment does your company use to create, the engineering output?
And I mean, it's not to say there aren't calibrators and tuners out there that are amazing doing custom tunes and stuff. Obviously we have zero information to go on in this case, but it comes up a lot in these conversations. It's like, well, I'm going to get a custom tune because I did this or X things. And like, I mean, the people assume that a custom tune is just going to always be better or always going to make more power or going to optimize.
Yeah.
And that's really tough to do these days. The amount of R&D that we have to put into these systems to get these world-renowned stage 1, stage 2 files off the ground and reliable and fast and safe is just a mess.
There's a trope going around, and it's being propagated by one particular guy who benefits from selling his custom tuning. And he claims that all his tunes are custom. Every time he does one on a B9 S4 with certain parts, it's somehow custom. But there's this trope going around that custom tuning is better than off-the-shelf tuning. There's no evidence to support that. I've even seen him try to produce some evidence, which is incredibly flawed. And even the people that have been reading this evidence are like, well, none of this makes sense. You're comparing apples to oranges. The fact of the matter is, good off-the-shelf tuning from a company with the right type of engineering skills and experience is going to be better than a custom tune in almost every case. And there's nothing magical about custom tuning. The magic is in how well does the calibration allow the engine to make more power, and how safely and how smoothly, and what are all the maps that need to be modified, have they all been modified? And that's really hard to do when you're doing it once in 2 days, sitting on a dyno while someone's looking over your shoulder waiting to get their car. We spend months doing it, many months, sometimes years.
I mean, we spend months and or years even getting to the point where we're comfortable, where we have the amount of information to even start the calibration process, where we have, high speed, full RAM logging from the ECU, not something constrained to like, VCDS or HP tuners, whatever whatever is normally out there. There are no commercial tools that really do this well, save for a few, and you've got to have quite a bit of this information already at your disposal to even get started.
Yeah. So the original question is, should I get zero throw? Yes, you should. Yeah, you will be much happier with our tune. We guarantee it. If you don't like it after 30 days, you can return it.
Sounds like you're on a stage 1 level setup. So yeah, I mean, I feel like we would certainly be able to give you everything we could out of it.
Yeah. But I think the one point to make is there's no way that we could sell a custom tune and make money. So I think that just goes to show you that when you pay someone $1,000 for a custom tune, you're really not getting them. You're getting 4 or 5 hours of their time on the dyno. Maybe they have a file that maybe they're just throwing an off the shelf file that's not even very good on your car, that they developed on someone else's car without the proper engineering resources.
Yeah, it's a real hard thing to quantify because, to Devon's point, a lot of the custom tunes are loading some file off of some reseller database onto the car, doing some logs, and sending them on their way. And if you're lucky, you get logs, or if you're lucky, you get a dyno. Was this thing even dyno? Do you have before and afters?
And you can buy these canned files from Europe from companies. We could rattle off 5 or 10 companies that sell these, and then you kind of get lied to and told that it's a custom tune. But the chance of a shop in West Palm Beach, Florida, being able to crack a B9 MG1 ECU, reverse engineer it all, and provide you a custom tune is really low. So you're probably got some canned file that he spent however long just trying to get on your car. And then once it was on your car, he may not even have had the ability to optimize it or modify it. So you may actually have a really bad off-the-shelf tune. There's lots of off-the-shelf food. You can McDonald's or In-N-Out or Shake Shack. They're both off-the-shelf standard recipes, but one may taste a lot better. So it's these kind of broad sweeping generalizations that off-the-shelf tuning is all bad, and only custom tuning is good. They're just not. They just don't hold up. You are driving a B8 S4 S5 on track. What brake pad are you running? High speed corners. What is your preference? Stock calipers?
You're not going to last long on stock calipers.
No. You have to upgrade.
They're underbraked. I mean,
even with our rotors, on track, if you're a really fast driver and you truly want to go and do maximum braking into every corner to get the fastest times around track, the factory caliper,
it's just
the fluid boils.
Yeah, it's just the diameter is too small on the disc. The calipers, just a sad example of a performance caliper. I think I got a lap and a half out of mine at Laguna with good. I had Carbotech pads in there, and the pads were fine. Literally, the caliper was on fire. Yeah. And was boiling fluid and just a disaster.
The fluid boils. That's the next.
There's just not enough. Yeah, there's not enough rotor. There's not enough cooling. There's not enough. Anything on a stock B8 S4 or S5. Yeah. To keep those things happy under track conditions.
But I would say generally speaking, anything from Paget, Hawk, Porterfield, Carbotech.
The Carbotechs were great.
Those are all good pads. You just got to get into the right compound. Now, things like EBC, I have never used an EBC pad that kind of lived up to its hype. I think they're like fast street pads, best case scenario, and they don't really make any racing pads. And the other thing I would caution you is anything that claims to be low dust is not a performance pad. You cannot escape physics on this.
Your track pads are going to be raunchy and crunchy and dusty. And
it'll strip the paint off the side of the car, but God, you'll stop good. I'm going to track my B9 S5 once the local racetrack opens. What should I know about my first time to the track? What mods would you most recommend for someone wanting to daily and track their car? We talked about this a lot in the past. If it's your first time on track, you don't really need to do anything to your car. You can take a bone stock car your first time to track. Just make sure it's in good maintenance. Make sure it's not overdue for an oil change. But you're not going to be shredding any tires on your first day. There shouldn't be. You shouldn't be. I doubt you will. Your first day on track, you should. I would say your first 10 times on track, your focus should be learn the flags, learn the safety. Are you safe on track? Are you going to be responsible for hurting yourself or somebody else because you're not familiar with the rules and etiquette of the track? Make sure you know how to get on and off the track safely. Make sure you know what to do if your car breaks. Make sure you know what to do if you lose control of the car and go off the track. Have a good understanding of what you do when the session ends. What are you supposed? These are all things. What happens if you get black flag?
It's pretty astounding. First time on track, it's very overwhelming. You think you're like, I'm a good driver. I got situational awareness. This is a whole nother thing. You've got a whole new list of things you're trying to keep track of, pun intended. Flag stations, corner workers. You've got now a road that's 8 lanes wide that everybody's. There's no lanes. You've got a lane that's 8 lanes wide.
There's no lanes.
Yeah, it's a very different experience, and something it's a very unique driving experience, and it's going to take some time to get used to it.
And then the other thing is start trying to wrap your head around what is the line.
Yep.
How do you drive on it?
Be a sponge.
What does it look like? And then really, hopefully you have some instruction available to you, and try to get a good instructor. Be very open to their feedback. You don't know anything about driving on track.
Yep.
Don't Dunning-Kruger yourself off the racetrack, because I see that. So I've instructed for a long time. Nate has, and it's frustrating when you see someone who is so wrong, who's driving so dangerously, and then you're in the passenger seat. So they have no idea what they're talking about, and then they're being defensive and trying to save face that I'm a.
You can find out real quick.
It's pretty obvious you have no idea what you're doing.
You can find out real quick why these OEMs spend so much time on the safety systems in the car and the nannies and the traction controls and the yaw controls. There's some very over enthusiastic driving styles.
But just be very open. Be willing. You just assume that you're wrong about everything. You don't know anything, and just listen to the people that know and let them guide you.
Yep.
Now it might be that 6 months from now, there's some nuanced opinions and not everyone at the track agrees on everything. You know, how do you do car control and what you do with the brakes, what you do with the steering. There is
even between all of us, we all drive
Yeah.
very differently. We all have very different styles of driving.
but there are basics that
There are some
everyone
basics
agrees
that
to.
you're gonna, yeah, that's just physics and laws of,
Yeah.
adhesion that you're gonna have to stick to. Just keep a very open mind. Don't expect anything out of yourself. When you get there, just
As far as, if you do want to modify the car, I would recommend like our springs and sway bar packages. That's going to allow the car to handle more flat and be more responsive.
And brake pads and rotors are going to be a big thing.
Yeah. And our Dynamic Plus rotors with like an upgraded pad are perfect for this type of driving.
Yep.
You know, when you get really fast and you really start pushing the limit, like Nate said, you're going to need more thermal capacity.
Well, this is B9. These are a lot better than the B8.
They have a lot more.
You've got a lot more brake to work.
That's true. The B9 S5 has like,
they're pretty darn good.
they're huge. Yeah. So if you get the right pad in that, you can last. But and I actually don't recommend getting really sticky track rubber anytime soon.
Tires, no.
Stick with like low grip tires, because what you want to do is you want to start getting closer and closer to the limit of traction. And it's much easier to get there if your limit of traction is 0.9 Gs instead of 1.3 Gs. 1.3 Gs, you're going to go fast around the track and you're just going to be stuck and glued to the pavement, but it's not going to teach you how to drive. And so if you can keep those limits lower and experience the front end pushing or the rear end sliding, the car starting to lose control, if you can do that at 65 miles an hour instead of 90, then as a beginner, you're going to be able to interact with that much more effectively. So, I think if you look on our past YouTubes, we have live.
Yeah, we talked about driver mods quite a bit.
But definitely don't. Like I said, the most important thing is familiarize yourself with the track, learn the track etiquette, the rules, and just start absorbing all the information because you have a lot to learn.
Check your ego at the gate.
ETA and additional B9 SQ5 parts, they're coming. We have our front and rear sway bar package coming.
It's good to see Nick's watching the channel.
Hey Nick, what else do we have coming?
Hardware-wise, we've got some of the bigger intake stuff. Well, the bigger stuff. So.
Super duper is coming. There is quite a few B8 products on the way, so don't fret. Sorry, B9 SQ5, yes. I saw you guys have rotors for the B9, B9.5 RS5. Do you guys have any pads? If not, any recommendations? How good
lots of brake
EBC? Yeah. We do have those rotors. We've just been talking about pads. I gave my opinion on EBC. I think they make like some okay street pads. I don't think I've ever seen. I think they have 3 colors and none of them are track pads.
This is one of the things we come into a lot is pads are very use specific if you get outside of normal street driving. So that's going to have to be something that you're going to spend some money on it. You're going to spend some time and find some things you might like or might not like.
Pads are an area where you have to specialize. There's no one stop all the cars with one pad.
Thankfully, the rotors are generally the same across all the pads. So
rotors,
but pads is a reason we don't necessarily stock the pad because there's an A pad. Yeah.
I think we answered that top one already.
Oh yes.
I just bought a Mark 8 GTI. Do you have any ETA for the intake? Any other products coming out? Really wanting the entire 0 through 4 catalog for my new GTI. Well, that's really great to hear. Thank you. That makes us excited. So we've finalized on the intake's design. It's going to be a really nice, high flowing S34 style intake. The goal is to have an affordable price for a really high quality product. It's going to be a while longer, probably at least 3 months before we can bring that product to market. It will be specific to the Mark 8. It will be a Mark 7 intake that's been repurposed. And then we currently have quite a few Mark 8 parts. So if you go on our website and put your Mark 8 model year, make and model into our catalog, you'll see everything that's available. The Mark 8 chassis is referred to as the MQB Evo. So it's an evolution of MQB. It is an MQB chassis with some small differences. So that means a lot of the Mark 7 parts already fit. We will be releasing more products like turbo inlets. We already have the turbo muffler delete for the GTI. Intercooler, all the suspension stuff, which I think most of it already fits.
Most of it crosses.
And we've been testing too. So we have actually tested this stuff. We didn't just put it in our catalog because it fits. We validated that the sway bars are the right size. We are doing whole new springs. There is some of our competitors have just repurposed some of the Mark 7 springs for the Mark 8. That's not going to be optimal. It will drop the car.
There are some mounting differences, especially in the rear.
It will drive down the road, but it's not the right performance spring for the car. We're going to be late to market, unfortunately. We could be selling springs right now that are mediocre, but we're going to wait and release an optimized spring, and that will be out later this summer probably. But it's a really cool car. I love the tech package, and it's definitely getting some used to.
The new MQB Evo interior it's a whole new thing.
It's really good quality. And
it's good quality. It's a lot of my old man might be coming in here, but having a tactile button somewhere kind of helps when you're driving.
But I think those days are over.
Those days are gone. You got.
I think Tesla.
You've got to either talk to the car or massage the steering wheel with its non-real buttons.
That one thing I don't like is the steering wheel. There's those tactile, electromagnetic touch buttons on the steering wheel, and those are too close. Yep. And so I find myself activating those inadvertently.
Yeah, it's tough. You don't feel it, so you don't know you're actually on a button.
Yeah.
There's some stuff to get used to, but overall, the tech is great on it.
It's a jump forward, and it's not perfect, but I'd rather have that than.
Yep.
And frankly, for Volkswagen, they need to move forward. The competition out there.
Volkswagen and Audi always tend to be kind of lagging, I think, behind on a lot of the silly tech, the phone integrations.
Sure. Americans do that.
All the bell and whistle features.
Yeah. The bell and whistle stuff. Is a low pressure fuel pump required for an E40 tune on the B8 S4 to run efficiently?
A properly functioning stock pump, one that's working correctly, should be sufficient. I've run my own B8, on E40 for years. Now recently, I'm actually just replaced it with another stock one because it's 110,000 miles on it.
More and more, we're hearing of factory pumps.
They're getting
reducing output for whatever reason. I know the RS7 pumps pretty popular.
Yeah, well, it depends on what you've got for a car. B8 you can't do that because we're talking brushed versus brushless. So you got to make sure.
What is the pump that B8?
You can do like VW65 stuff. You can do there's a handful out there.
We will.
But you got to make sure it gets into the basket. That's the big thing. Is you want to make sure you're still utilizing the stock basket.
We will release initially a universal fuel pump surge tank kit,
right?
Yep. And then eventually, hopefully, we can install hardware
specific vehicles.
But that will kind of eliminate with the in-tank pump. You can run whatever you want. You can run a shitty factory pump that flows half as much.
It's just a feeder pump for the tank with no pressure.
And then you can also get rid of all the starvation issues too.
Yes.
What's the biggest limitation on the B8.5 S4 power-wise?
It's kind of threefold, or more than threefold. It's the biggest thing is obviously your power adder, your supercharger. That's it's tapped out and beyond at this point.
Well, it's putting out like twice as much power than anyone ever thought it could 8 years ago.
We're in the low tens, running on a but it was originally spec'd as a 300 horsepower as a supercharger.
I mean, we're like 200 horsepower up on the original tunes that were released.
So that's going to be your biggest hurdle. Fortunately, there's also several other things that kind of run out at the same time. So you're kind of out of fuel. You're kind of out of, you're definitely out of intercooler capacity on it. So it's a pretty wholesale upgrade you've got to do to get much more out of that engine platform. So you're talking a new charger, new intercooler brakes, additional fueling for that power.
It's definitely the supercharger and the intercoolers are a huge.
We've got some stuff coming that we think is going to help.
Mm-hmm.
That helps in other ways.
With that said, within the limit, it's in a very, very optimal state.
Incredibly good.
And if I wanted 550 horsepower out of a 3.0 TB8, and there's really no better 550 horsepower I could get than
it's instant power. It's razor sharp response
and cheap. I mean, you can get so much power out of these things with dirt cheap.
Yeah, these days they're an incredibly potent package for the price.
I remember the days when
You still have to maintain it though.
Yeah,
You can buy a
it
cheap
needs-
car,
it
but
needs-
make sure you keep it up to, it's going to need injectors, it's going to need fuel pump, like we just said, it's going to need.
I just remember the days where if you wanted a B5 S4 to get in that kind of power range, it was $20,000 at least.
Well, they're not even, and then
not even close.
Not even close.
They're not
You
even
can't
close.
track a B5 S4 with anywhere near that power. The thing
Or
is
run
a
10s.
nightmare. Or run 10s. Like, yeah, very few B5 S4s are running 10s.
I remember we had a B5 S4. We used to have this single turbo kit. And the thing was putting out like 600 wheel. And it had a built motor. It was I think it was a 3-liter stroker. I mean, this car had like 50 grand put in it. And it had big tires, really nice, forged wheels. It was a really nice, optimal setup. And so I was like, let's take it to the track and let's see if we can run fast. And I drag raced this thing all night long, and I finally hit an 11.9 with it. I mean, it was so hard.
The transmission.
I finally nailed the launch. It was perfect. I nailed every gear, but I was running like 12.5s all night, and finally got it down to 11.9 with that much money invested.
Yeah.
That's like, I mean, what is a stage 1 B8 S4
$700
West Lakes?
Oh yeah,
Runs like an 11.8.
Yeah, we ran an 11.8 years ago, and we've got guys now. We just did a contingency for a guy running 11.9 stage 1 on 93 octane
on basically $1,000 tune. That's it.
Yeah, ECU and TCU tune. That's it.
And the car's pretty cheap too. I mean, these aren't like $100,000 cars either. So, anyways, it's like we always say, it's a good time to be in heavy tune.
Yeah, the B5, you'd be into another 100 grand for a transmission that'll actually let you.
Yeah.
Get anywhere near there.
B9 RS5 Stage 2 and big turbo ETA. So RS5 Stage 2 is coming soon.
Yes.
Big turbo will be in a little while, but we are working. I mean, it's imminent that we'll work on it. We just released Stage 1. We need to release Stage 2, and then Stage 3 will come. We're in the process of releasing Stage 3 B9 S4 3.0 T. So just to kind of give you a feel for RS5, 2.9 T is about 3-4 months behind 3.0 T. For the ZF8 and B9 S4, would you guys consider developing a track-specific logic where we can keep it in auto going around the track and the trans will always hit the perfect gear like drag logic?
That is really, really hard.
That's not really how it works.
You can. I mean, we can. Yeah.
That would be track specific.
It would be track specific. It would be
which I don't even think that's what they're referring to.
It's the exact power output specific. It would be
so the optimal
traction specific.
The perfect gear on track has less to do with the power band, and it has more to do, or as much to do, with how much load is on the engine, and then that load on the engine shifts the weight of the car front and rear and allows you to control the car. So you can control the steering of the car as much with the throttle as you can with the steering. And so we could not program that in to the level where you would just you would be floored around the track the entire time.
Yeah. And there's just so many situations on track where you want to you don't want to upshift, or you want to upshift early because of the way the gear matches the corner that's coming up. So that kind of thing is there's a calibration that'll work fine. Yeah, it'll work fine even as it is now in sport mode. It works fine, but there's nothing there. You're never going to have an optimized. I mean, if that was the case, F1 cars would have they wouldn't have paddles on the shifter. That's just you're going to have to. You have to know. You're the only thing in the vehicle that knows what's coming.
Yeah.
The vehicle, to an extent, they have cameras and everything, but that's not tied in any way like that.
The only way to make what this question refers to, the only way to make that work would be not only to control what gear, but the throttle. Yeah. All the parameters that control the car around the track. So it would basically be a fully autonomous driving car. Yep. This concept, though, of optimizing gears works really well for drag racing, because it's a condition where the engine is essentially outputting maximum power the entire time. On. And then it's a matter of acceleration. That's all you're doing. You're not controlling the car. You're not shifting the weight front and rear. You're just putting power to the tires. And so the question becomes, how do I get the most power to the tires the most time during the drag race? And let's say the drag race is going to last anywhere from 10 to 12 seconds. The more power and torque you can deliver to the tires, to the track surface, the longer and harder you'll accelerate during the quarter mile distance.
Yep.
And that's why instead of sitting in gear from 5,500 to 6 and say making an average of 450 horsepower, if you shift at 5,500 RPM, you can then put yourself in a power band that has an average of 575 horsepower. You just gain 25 horsepower over that same distance on the track. That's more acceleration. That's why you go faster.
Yep. Yep. And you know, all of our previous points hold is, you know, that tune is developed for a track we have complete knowledge of, which is in this case a straight line. So it can be optimized in that way.
Our different finishes for ZTF 01s coming out. I do not see a wheel that specifically states the B9 S5 being compatible. That would be a good question for marketing.
We'll have to confirm that.
I thought we had an S5 wheel because we have for the RS5.
Well, RS5's got big old fenders, but yeah,
I'm guessing the B9
I think the
will
S4
be
is.
the one to go with, but we don't see them.
Let's escalate that to marketing. As far as different finishes, we will be offering different finishes for our upcoming Flowform wheels, which are the ZTF 01 LPs, which stands for low pressure. Those we will offer in 4 different colors. Those are on the way. I believe they're a couple months out. On the forged wheels, the R's, we do not currently offer different colors. And the issue is those wheels are very expensive, and the amount of inventory that we would have to carry to have a broad choice of wheel colors, those wheels are like 3-4 times more expensive than the Flowform wheels. So we can actually take a chunk of money and put a lot of different Flowform wheels in stock. We just kind of scratch the surface with the forged ones. So our position currently is the forged ones are anthracite. It's a high performance, really high quality wheel. That anthracite color, it looks good on everything.
Yeah,
and if you really want a different color, you can get them refinished.
Just get them refinished.
It's for about $100-$150 a week.
Super common thing.
Any plans for developing parts software for the VW Arteon? Not really. So anything that we currently do that fits the Arteon, we probably need to list. I don't know if we've done that. Do we have an Arteon category on our web? Can you make a note about that? So that can be discussed with Nick. And then, we're probably not going to do custom tuning for that. But, if lots of people start asking for it, we could put it on our radar, but it's not on our radar.
Right, and it's one of those things. If it comes along and it's the same calibration as something else, you'll get there'll be something for you there. But yeah, it's unlikely that we'll be doing a specific calibration for it.
What's next for B9 3.0 T? Anything software related besides Stage 3 applications? ALC. Will high pressure fuel pump be required for Stage 3? Let's see. There's lots more coming for B9 3.0 T.
There's a lot coming for software and hardware on that.
Stage 3 is coming. Advanced launch control and other features are coming.
Yep. And
yes, high pressure fuel pump is required for Stage 3. Yep. That's a very high output file. And the good news is, we can confidently say that if you have one of the good high pressure fuel pump options in the market currently, that you can fully support E85 with Stage 3 currently, which bodes well for the capacity of this factory fuel system. So that's good, and more information will be coming. What are your thoughts on water mount injection for the B8 S4? We have a live about this. Someone just commented on it on their YouTube channel. I would just share that with them.
Yep.
We don't need to rehash that. The 85 kit precision thing. We talk about that every week.
We already talked about that.
We talked about MPI early in the show.
Yeah. I guess I think it's worth reiterating. Someone's asking, what do you think about the fully 85 kit? Precision Raceworks sells for the B8.5. I'm thinking about buying it. They don't sell an E85 kit. They sell a fuel rail with injectors.
It's the kind of the easy part of making it fit.
I think they have a fueling controller, but it's nothing there are no instances that I know of or have heard of yet where there are any well-rounded, well-running vehicles with any of those kits currently. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's anything out there that is, in any kind of sorted, well-running setup that's running any more power than anyone else's.
There is an idea that this is the next step to unlock all the power from the B8s, and that's not necessarily true.
You do need very specific ECU calibration work done, and you're still stuck then with this secondary fueling system, which has not been integrated with the stock ECU at all, and is showing that it doesn't play very well outside of any very specific conditions that it might have been tuned under.
Let's see. If synthetic oil is very good for a wide range of temperatures, then why in the manual for the B9 3.0T it says the operating temperature is 180 degrees? Well, that's the temperature that the vehicle is controlling it to. Where the temperature of synthetic oil comes in is when the engine's cold. Once the car is warm and the vehicle is controlling the oil's temperature, then you don't really have to think about oil temp. But where the wide range of temp compatibility comes in is this morning here in California, it was 48 degrees in my garage. In Alaska, it was 33 degrees. In Florida, it was 85 degrees. And somewhere in Canada, it was 30 below. So
That's rough.
And one engine with one oil weight kind of needs to deal with all that. And that's where synthetic oils come in. Now, once all those cars are running in all of those different locations, the oil is going to be sitting at 180 degrees because Audi created a really trick temperature control system with a lot of computer logic to hold it right at 180 degrees. But what you have to worry about is when it's cold, and that's where the challenge comes in. You could get like an oil pan heater. I mean, there are ways to control the temperature of the oil when the engine's not running. Almost nobody does that.
Yeah, I mean, there are situations also on extreme use, high load stuff, load stuff. It's going to go a lot over 180, and that's where the synthetic does have a much better capacity to deal with that as well than the traditional oil.
And so you're making the point, which is very valid, that once the temperature control system becomes overwhelmed by the amount of heat entering the system, then the temps will go up. And on a track or on a very hot day, driving the car very hard, say going up a mountain, the system will not be able to keep it at 180. So it may go to 220 or 250 or 280, and that also means that same oil, which allowed your car to start in minus 30 below, also will not break up or disintegrate at 280 degrees either. That's pretty freaking amazing, and dinosaur oil cannot do that.
Yeah.
So, and it can do it for a very long time. It used to be you had to change your oil every 3,000 miles. Now, 10, 15,000 miles a common oil change interval. Any CARB legal stuff coming for B9? We are working towards CARB exemptions. Really no such thing as CARB legal. But we are currently in the process of getting the B9 3.0T tuning.
Yeah,
and
similar intake tuning.
Wow, amazing to get a response that detailed the DA. Thanks, guys.
This is an older question.
Yeah. What pulley is best if I got your stage 2 engine plus TCU tuning?
I mean, depends what.
Nate always recommends.
Yeah, I mean
the smaller pulleys.
I like the one,
like the 170 double pulley.
With all the logs I see from all of you guys out there, the happy spot seems to be like the 179 lower with the upper, or whatever that ratio works out to. If you've already got an upper, if you don't have an upper at all,
or just like the 190.
You can do it with one pulley on the bottom, but that ratio seems to work very well for most. Now going beyond that, lots of guys are higher than that, higher pulley ratios than that. It's diminishing returns, and it's a lot harder to keep everything in a well-running, happy, reliable condition. Those two lines diverge when you the bigger and bigger ratio you run.
But Nate's advice and our advice is, don't necessarily be tempted by overdriving the supercharger. There's not as much to gain as most people think.
If you ask this question on the Facebook groups, the forums, there's lots of guys like, I run a 207 lower with a 57 upper, and that's fine. But it may work, but it's not. It's a tough. It's a tough combination to keep running well and running in an efficient way.
I think we might need a good analogy for this one, because people just don't seem to understand it. So imagine you're a girl and you're going to the club and you really track some guys. And let's say you can do 75 twerks a minute is your max level of twerk that you're able to accomplish.
This is a good analogy.
Well, so you go out on the dance floor and you're like, it's time to get some guys. It's time to track some guys here. Now, are you going to want to go in with 75 twerks a minute? You're not going to be able to sustain that all night. You might actually dislocate a hip or something. So you go in with 40 twerks a minute, and then maybe once you find like the guy that you want to hone in on, you can bring that up to about 60. But going to 75 twerks a minute, you're just not going to accomplish what you want. So this is the same thing with the supercharger. The supercharger does better at the equivalent of lower twerks, and
keep your TPM ratio down.
You're going to end up with that long-term relationship, hopefully, and like really good quality communication and all the things that come with picking up guys at the club, by just bringing the twerk per minute down.
Just make sure all your assembly is done with a torque wrench.
Are you guys continuing development for Golf R 7.5? Yeah, I mean we have one here. And it has the EQT turbo setup on it. We're doing the flex fuel stuff. Well, the dual stage injection, all that stuff.
Multi-port injection, flex fuel, all that.
We're just not out here saying it'll be ready on Thursday. So we're working on it. But I'm running E85 on KO4 and been looking at that fuel upgrade part you guys offer. Yes, if you're referring to the high pressure fuel pump, that is a good thing to get.
You need that for E85.
You do need that, which increases the fuel system. The amount of fuel your fuel system can deliver, because E85 requires a lot more fuel than gasoline, about 30% more. Surge tank for B8 S4 ETA. We don't have current ETA for a B8 installation package, but we are working on bringing our universal kit to market. It's taken forever. We've talked about supply chain stuff. Hopefully soon. I know we're just waiting for parts to show up. So we will offer a universal kit, and then we will work on doing install specific kit. But we could bring a universal kit to market sooner, and adapting it into a car is not super difficult. So for a lot of you out there that are handy, you'll be able to get that installed. But the surge tank itself is exactly what you need. GT 22060 support for the MQB. We're not currently doing anything with turbos.
We talked about that earlier, though. And once we're done with the EQT stuff, we'll probably move the Garrett drop-ins, just as those are getting common, and they're.
We'll support whatever's the most popular. We're almost out of time. What pressure can 3.0 TFSI superchargers side map sensors detect?
Yeah, those are all 2.5 bar sensors. So they'll in PSI world, it'll be like low 20, like 22, 23 PSI. Or whatever. Yep, which is about all you ever. Well, it's more than you would ever typically want to run on these turbos or superchargers.
Have you considered VenomTurbos for the S4 B9? We have. I don't think we currently are. Marketing may know about them. Our initially, we're going to support the TTE stuff for sure, and we're currently. Also looking at the pure turbos option, but we have our ear to the ground on what is it that people want. If one person's running Venom Turbo, it won't matter if it's the best turbo in the world. We need to make sure that our development efforts support the biggest number of customers possible.
And it's, again, if it's the best turbo in the world, that's fine if you can get it. Supply chain stuff is one thing, and then working on, potentially smaller distribution and manufacturing facilities is another. So, getting hybrid turbos reliably and it isn't the easiest thing.
Do mid-pipes secondary cantilever on an RS3 add more pops and crackles? Yeah. I mean, and the more you open up your exhaust system, the louder the pops and bangs get. If you took your exhaust system off, you'd be hella poppy bangy. So yeah, but the cats do. They're basically like mufflers or silencers when it comes to the pops and bangs. We're basically on the
we just got so. Still got some questions in the queue.
Yeah, I mean, there's one real quick. 2018 B9 A4 wants 400 horsepower reliably. I think so. 400 crank should be doable with the right turbo. It's just going to be a matter of getting the right tuning to support that. But I don't think the motor will have any trouble with that. And you'll need intercooling and
big intercooler.
Yeah. These days, that's no problem. And if you want to compare like Mark 7 stuff.
The system runs out on that, but I think it's the same as the Mark 7.
But like GTIs and stuff are running around with 400 horsepower, no problem. With the right turbo and intercooler and everything.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Well, cheers. Thanks for joining us one more week. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks.